is July 30th, 2025. There's a heat wave. Well, we're in a heat dome, which is a special thing, even worse than a normal heat wave. We're going to be reading this fucking travesty right here, and I'm referring to it for travesty for a very specific reason. We got our copy from Goodwill when the first person who bought it originally, who kept it in very good condition. Thank you for that. It's like in perfect condition. It's just kind of crazy how good condition is. The poor person who bought this originally, you see how big this book is? Is it even thicker than my pinky? No, my pinky finger is thicker than this book. Do I want to go get a ruler? Literally measure it? Yeah, I will. BRB. We're gonna measure it with my broken ruler because I don't know where the other one is. It's not even, clearly not even half an inch. Let's do it with centimeters. It's less than a centimeter. This book is literally less than a centimeter. And I'm saying that, wait till I show you or at least read you, probably won't be able to focus on them. The trade prices on the back of this book that's less than a centimeter thick. And not like it was written for charity or anything where somebody writes a story and you pay a bunch of money for it, because the point is not buying the story. The point is donating to charity, which I guess I should mention. Yeah, that would be a good idea. I am doing a thing where if you donate $1 to any mutual aid fund, which can be any Palestinian relief fund, handing a fucking money to literally any homeless person, and I'll just take your word for it. Any kind of mutual aid, if you donate $1, I will make a public domain character or an entire species with a design of your choice, which means you can describe, I don't know, dragons with 6 wings and etc. And I'll make it and it'll become public domain. Or for every $1, what did I say? I think I said for every $1 you donate, I can also record 20 minutes of an audiobook of your choice. It either has to be public domain or something that you own, or fan fiction that you have written or your friend wrote who wants an audiobook or something like that. Yeah. And if you donate at least $25, you can pick a public domain movie or cartoon or something, and I will novelize it. I think my audiobook for the King Kong thing that's public domain, that came to about 3-something hours and has 40,000 words. I'm not doing that math, but okay, maybe next time I will just find something to read and I'll set a timer for 20 minutes and then I'll see how much of that I could read in 20 minutes. Anyways, the price is on the back of this book. So yeah, I came up with that because I remembered that, because talking about there's a whole bunch of books you can buy for charity where people write stories for charity. They're called charity anthologies usually. There's a whole bunch of Doctor Who ones where people will just write fan fiction and then you donate to charity and you get a physical copy as a way to raise money for charity. That's not what this book is, though. This book that is less than a centimeter thick. And that's including all the blank pages at this. There's at least 3 blank pages at the end. You want to know how much this book costs? The poor, 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 poor soul who bought it the first time. Thank you for giving it to Goodwill so I could get it for $3. This poor person paid $15.99 at the very least, because that's the guide price, and individual stores can go above that because when I bought book 5 with the last paycheck I ever got, because I was assuming that book 5 was going to be an actual novel, you know, like with everything that an actual novel can contain that you will be reading over and over again for the entire rest of your life. I paid $35 for that, but the guide price is like $25. So Barnes and Nobles, or whatever the fuck I bought it from, was charging an extra $10. And if you happen to be in Canada, it's... Can we focus on the damn thing? No, it doesn't want to focus. Maybe you can read that. Yeah. If you're in Canada, if you bought this new, you'd be paying $20.99, and I can only presume that people who are trying to buy this now after the Apple TV that Martha Wells is shilling for has come out, I'm gonna assume they're charging even more. $20 fucking dollars. $15.99. Brand new. For a book less than a centimeter thick with 149 pages of story. And they didn't even, like, fill up the whole page with as much text as possible. So, like, it's a scam is what I'm trying to say here. It's a fucking scam. People like to call it anti-capitalist robots in space. But it's $16 minimum for a book less than a centimeter thick. Should I go and get one of the Star Wars books? I think I'm going to. You're just going to sit here and stare at my beautiful cardboard. Again, I'll be right back. Alright, plan aborted. My twin keeps rearranging the bookshelves, so now I don't know where the Star Wars books are. I was going to show you Outbound Flight and check what the price was for that originally. But anyways, I can give you another example from memory. You just have to trust me and or look it up. What the fuck is his name? Dude writing under the pseudonym Christopher Pike. Which, if you're a Star Wars or Star Trek nerd, you might be like, hey, wait, like the captain? Yes, it's the equivalent of somebody writing under the pseudonym Jean-Luc Picard. The author, Christopher Pike, was writing a story about a vampire named Sita, and she's the coolest vampire ever, and God loves her, and just keeps letting her get away with fucking crimes that he's told her. Stop doing that. Stop doing that. This is the last time. Stop doing that. And then she just keeps doing it. And he just keeps going, fine, I guess you can get away with it this time, but stop doing it. And then she just keeps doing it. Like, also that man hates physically disabled people and so much more. And it's like, dude, like the writing was so bad. And just going in this, just doing the same thing over and over again, but pretending it's totally different this time. That I, as fucking high schooler, got sick of it and gave up on it because he was just so bad at writing. But anyways, we bought one of his books that was this thick from, what the fuck is that? The bookstore that closed, that doesn't exist anymore. Like Blockbuster, but for books. I don't remember what it's called anymore, but we bought that, and that was $10. That was 3 books shoved into one, like this, but out to here, like to the point that it couldn't fit in my backpack if I wanted to have my textbooks with me. So, yes, we are just starting the first 10 minutes of this with me just complaining about the size of it, because this is a fucking scam. $16 plus tax, plus whatever extra markup the individual seller wants to charge for this, for a book less than a centimeter thick. And that's with blank pages at the start and the end, and text that's not even filling as much of the page as possible. That's a fucking scam, especially if you are going to go around pretending to be anti-capitalist and claim that you hate corporate greed, but you are corporate greed. You are. Especially now that Martha Wells is actively shilling for Apple, the evil corporation that these books are supposed to be against, but only if they aren't paying you, apparently, because Martha Wells is literally a white supremacist sellout. She's been telling everybody that Murderbot is a person of color, but as soon as Apple offers her that sweet, sweet white supremacy money, she's like, yes, give me that. I will tell poor people to subscribe to your shitty fucking TV service. Anyways, we're gonna actually start reading this now. Says we have a package delivered. Do I really want to go outside and get it? I guess I will. I'll actually pause it this time, though. Oh, I'm back and I regret everything. My God, it's so fucking hot and humid out. Anyways, we're gonna actually start reading it. Well, I'm gonna read it, and you're gonna get to see my reactions. Unless we want to do the thing where I read each paragraph and then spend 30 minutes that's actually what is probably going to happen, because the first paragraph in here is so loaded with bigotry. It's unbelievable. And it's like, this is Martha Wells telling you exactly how she views the world. We're just gonna do that, because just you wait until you see this first paragraph. Actually, wait, let's read the summary. In a corporate-dominated spacefaring future, planetary missions must be approved and supplied by the company, with a capital C. Exploratory teams are accompanied by company-supplied security androids. Oh, we're lying to people? Explicitly lying to people. Oh my God. This is the first time I've ever read the official summary. This is so funny. I'm so, at this point, I've just been so conditioned to think that there's nothing on the back of the book besides fucking, oh, this story is so great, or best-selling author thingy-majig. I'd never actually looked at this before. That's hilarious. So we're explicitly lying to people on the back of the book. These characters are not androids. They are cyborgs. Martha Wells has confirmed this. They are cyborgs. The difference between an android and a cyborg: Data from Star Trek is an android. Luke Skywalker is a cyborg. Data was built artificially, entirely. Luke Skywalker was born and then later given cybernetic things. Murderbot is a cyborg. All of the quote-unquote sec units and comfort units, they're all cyborgs. They're real people, real human people, who are mutilated at birth to give them cybernetic augments and dehumanized to justify enslaving them. But we're just saying that they're androids on the back of the book because Martha Wells is many things. Coherent politically. I mean, no, it's not even incoherent. It's just racism and white supremacy and ableism all mixed together. Anyways, exploratory teams are accompanied by company-supplied security androids for their own safety. But in a society where contracts are awarded to the... But in a society where contracts are awarded to the lowest bidder, safety isn't a primary concern? On a distant planet, a team of scientists are conducting surface tests, shadowed by their company-supplied droid, a self-aware sec unit that has hacked its own governor module and refers to itself, though never out loud, as Murderbot. Scornful of humans, all it really wants is to be left alone long enough to figure out who it is. But when a neighboring mission goes dark, it's up to the scientists and their Murderbot to get to the truth. Like, that is, I mean, that sure is a fucking summary. That sure is something. just calling Murderbot a droid. It's like, alright. That sure is something. I mean, way to double down on the dehumanization that is explicitly happening in universe. And then it's never going to be revealed that that's what's happening, because that would require actually giving a shit. Yeah, that's fucking... That sure as hell is something. Cover art by Jamie Jones. Cover design by Christine Fultzer. Also, I gotta say, I've stared at this cover for years now, and I only realized very recently that those are trees behind Murderbot. Like, this whole time, I thought the whole thing is that, like, the scene from the iRobot movie where Sonny is standing in the room, the warehouse of the other robots, and I thought this whole fucking time, despite staring at this repeatedly in detail, it just literally never occurred to me. I'm like, oh yeah, that's just an out of focus background of a sea of other psych units in armor to show that Murderbot is just one of many and just got lucky to have a fucked up governor module, right? But no, those are trees. Those are just trees. Those are the trees that don't actually matter, that we don't really get a description of. We just get told that the evil people's base camp is surrounded by these super skinny tall trees so that they can see in all directions, because the trees don't really block your view because they're super skinny. Yeah, those are trees in the background, not just those are supposed to be the rings of the planet that they are on. Yes, we are just doing this for the first probably 20 minutes of the video. Those are supposed to be the rings on the planet that never actually get described in a way that's memorable. But, the way the light is just reflecting off of Murderbot's helmet, and just the fact that it's so out of focus, it just really gives the impression that Murderbot is in a giant room with a curved ceiling, and those are other sec units surrounding it, just out of focus because Murderbot is one among many. But no, they're trees, and those are planetary rings. So, good job, Jamie Jones, for doing some pretty art. But the person who designed it and told you what to do, whichever one of you fucked up this badly, that I'm definitely not the only person to misinterpret this so drastically. You gotta have more distinct design. Maybe put some fucking color in those trees. Put some fucking color in the sky. Put some color in that. It's not my fault I completely misinterpreted this despite staring at it so much. I literally spent the entire time going, yeah, those are totally just other people, right? No, they're trees. Anyways, also another complaint. Murderbot is always shown in this armor on the cover art, even after it literally never gets access to this kind of armor ever again. And it's just the official art omnibus that nobody can afford, that's also not even for charity, despite... you can be creative and show murder... No, it's all because of the racism. Because if Murderbot is wearing armor, then we can just let everybody project what they think Murderbot should look like. Also, do you see how that lighting perfectly matches up with the trees? It's all just making it indistinct, and it's not good. It's not good art. That's just bad art design. It's actively making you not want to look closer to see what the hell is going on, which is why I've literally thought since, when did I start reading these books? 2020 something. 2021, I think. Maybe 2020. I don't remember. I'll have to check my blog. Anyways, yeah. You can just draw Murderbot in different outfits without showing its face, and just have it in creative, fun poses that just happens to be turning away. Just make it a running thing. We could have so much fun with the cover art, but we're not doing that because that would require Martha Wells to actually commit to her statements that Murderbot is a person of color by getting artists to draw it as a person of color on the official books. But she doesn't want to do that because she wants the plausible deniability, so that when Apple pays her however the hell much they're paying her to sell out to them, she can gleefully accept their white supremacy money to gleefully shill for the people whitewashing her own protagonist. Anyways, yeah, we're 20 minutes and 10 seconds in. Let's read paragraph 1. Let's do that together. And then we're going to spend another half an hour discussing paragraph 1. Chapter 1. I could have become a mass murderer after I hacked my governor module, but then I realized I could access the combined feed of entertainment channels carried on the company's satellites. Period. It had been well over 35,000 hours or so since then, with still not much murdering, but probably, I don't know, a little under 35,000 hours of movies, serials, books, plays, and music consumed. Period. As a heartless killing machine, I was a terrible failure. Period. That's paragraph 1, and it's very illustrative of Martha Wells's view on slavery and how slaves act. Because what she thinks she's doing by saying that is poking fun at racist propaganda, but she's just doing the racist propaganda instead. Because Murderbot isn't saying, haha, all the humans think that that we're just violent, mindless killing machines. I don't even remember what the start of that sentence I just said was. She's not having Murderbot laugh about that because Murderbot doesn't think that's true. She's having Murderbot say that because because Martha Wells thinks that's fucking true and has Murderbot agree with her, and Murderbot frames itself, because Martha Wells is framing it, as one of the good ones. Because every single other slave on this fucking planet in this story ends up getting murdered by the good guys, and we're just supposed to be completely fine with it because Martha Wells is racist, as I have said many times, and will keep saying until people get it through their fucking racist heads. It is literally not possible to be actually truly anti-racist and anti-slavery and write a story like All Systems Red. It's physically fucking impossible for somebody who actually understands how horrific slavery is to sit down and even think about writing a book with the plot that you will fucking see in here, let alone write it all out as a first draft, presumably edit it. We fucking hope. It really is, it really does not seem like Martha Wells is actually editing her first drafts. It seems like she's literally just shitting out a first draft and then sending that off to the publisher to edit or not, as their fucking whims dictate, as you've all seen from Rapport, with the fan-fiction-y obnoxious title that people give their stories when they can't think of anything else to name it, where there are so many blatant typos, including a missing space between two words, that still, as of today, July 30th, 2025, when this short story was published, July 10th, it's been 20 fucking days from these supposedly professional publishers, they're traditional publishers, that, they do quality control, that's why they're so expensive. 20 whole fucking days now, and they still have not fixed any of the blatant typos on the short story that they are claiming that they professionally edited. Go to reactormag.com, I think it's /MarthaWells/rapport, maybe, I might be getting that wrong, but I was just looking at that link earlier. That might be the correct URL, might not be, I don't know. Just Google it. It'll show up. Just Control F and then type out "she honestly," one word. Is that fucking typo still in there despite being so goddamn blatant that a 12-year-old would spot it and fix it if they had the ability? Yeah. 20 days after this was published for thousands of people to read, they still haven't fixed it. It would take, maybe 10 minutes maximum, but they're just not doing it because they don't give a fuck. They don't care about quality, they just want money. This book on Kindle was originally getting sold for $2, as opposed to $16 for a physical fucking... This is a paperback, by the way, not a hardcover. It's not even a hardcover. It's a paperback. And also, the hardcovers of the other books in this series, they have the most disgusting fucking texture on the dust jacket. It's like disgusting. I don't even want to touch it, which is why I haven't made these videos. I'm gonna take it off for recording them. It's just disgusting. Anyways, what was I saying? Besides, like, yeah, we'll just get into it, because, like, this first paragraph, this is just, it's Martha Wells telling you that she thinks that if you give slaves freedom, they will just want to murder everybody. Because this isn't commentary on the in-universe propaganda. This is what Martha Wells actually believes. And you know the difference between this being in-universe propaganda and what Martha Wells actually believes and wants us to believe. You know what makes that difference? If this was just in-universe propaganda, then every other slave in this fucking story, and almost every single other slave in the entire 7 books and 11 short stories published for this fucking series, they wouldn't all wind up getting murdered by the protagonists and presented as rabid fucking animals that need to be put down for the safety of the precious, precious pure cinnamon roll slave owners. That's what makes this fucking first paragraph reflective of Martha Wells' actual fucking values as a person and what fucking message she's actually putting out with this book series. Because she's not bringing up, haha, the racists that are enslaving us tell everybody that we're just mindless serial killers, and then they're not. They're just fucking oppressed people fighting for equality who deserve the right to fight for their fucking freedom. Instead, it's, yeah, that's true for everybody except me, because I'm different. I'm one of the good ones. This is, like, if Martha Wells were actually anti-racist and actually against slavery as a concept, this whole entire book would not literally be dedicated to a slave throwing itself into harm's way and attempting to kill itself multiple times to save the lives of its precious, precious, pure cinnamon roll slave owners who just didn't realize that slavery was wrong. They don't have robots where they come from. How were they supposed to know that Murderbot was a person and that it's wrong to treat it as an object? As you'll have noticed if you've read the rest of the series, a thing that's a blatant fucking lie, because they do have robots where they come from, and they do acknowledge that they are people. And again, Martha Wells is just so fucking shit at writing that she doesn't just reread the shit she's already written to make sure she's not contradicting herself. So the Preservation Ox team are just inherently already horrible people for going out of their way to rent out a fucking slave for a thing they literally don't need to be doing. And then she made them even worse people retroactively in this fucking book, where they claim that they didn't know Murderbot was a person. They just don't have people like you. We don't have people like you in our gated community, in our socialist gated community. We just had no clue you were a person. And it's like, and then we see Preservation later in the series, and yeah, they were just lying to Murderbot's face. That's what they're doing in this book now, because of what Martha Wells decided to write later, without double checking what she fucking wrote in here. They're just lying to Murderbot's face. Anyways, let's actually fucking try to read some shit. 29 minutes and 11 seconds into the fucking video. I could have become a mass murderer. I'm not reading that whole paragraph. Well, I guess I will. I could have become a mass murderer after I hacked my governor module, but then I realized I could access the combined feed of entertainment channels carried on the company's satellites. Satellites, plural, just for a fucking note. It had been well over 35,000 hours or so since then, which translates to about 4 years in Earth time. with still not much murdering, but probably, I don't know, a little under 35,000 hours of movies, serials, books, plays, and music consumed. As a heartless killing machine, I was a terrible failure. Alright, that's paragraph 1. Now, are you prepared for paragraph 2? I was also still doing my job, because even when Martha Wells is talking to other people, or even herself, in interviews, outside of the story, she still is downplaying what slavery actually fucking is. She's literally having Murderbot refer to being enslaved as a meat shield as just a job. A job. As though being literal property as a meat shield in this fucking instance, Murderbot's entire fucking purpose is to be a meat shield, as though that's equivalent to a job that is boring, because that's how she consistently frames slavery in this series, despite this not being it's not a series about somebody in space who has a really boring job they don't like. It's about slavery. Fucking people dehumanized, mutilated at birth, dehumanized to justify enslaving them, and then used as fucking meat shields or sex slaves. And it's like, and she just constantly, it's a very fucking white thing to do, because, also she's from Texas. She's not just a racist white woman, she's literally from Texas. It's like, okay, so congrats on fulfilling the fucking stereotype that everybody from all the white people from Texas are racist. It's like, yeah, and I keep seeing her in interviews complaining that the rest of the writing community keeps disappointing her. And it's like, all right, with everything that I have ever seen that you have written, and I have read all but 8 stories of hers out of, I think, 44, I have a list. I've made a list. I know how she responds to criticism, and it's to double down on what she's doing and make up a caricature of whoever criticized her, and then putting that caricature in her books to show and portray as being stupid or a mentally ill serial killer. That's what she does. And it's like, alright, so Martha Wells, when you say that the writing community keeps disappointing you and that you don't feel like you're part of it, is it because the rest of the writing community points out the bigotry that you're putting in your work, and instead of listening to them, you caricaturize them and put them in your story to make fun of them? Is it because the rest of the writing community has tried to explain to you multiple times how pronouns work, basic pronouns, literal grammatical pronouns work, and that you should not be having 2 separate characters talking and acting within the same paragraph where there's dialogue? Is it because you refuse to change and grow as a person or a writer, so every time somebody tries to explain to you how to better do what you are trying and failing to accomplish, you just double down and insist that they're fucking stupid because you don't need to know how pronouns work? And if you think the Fel are racist or evil just because I wrote them as literal racist caricatures, I bet you think that fucking British colonizers were evil. And it's like Martha Wells would literally rather defend the original British colonizers, the people who actively did multiple fucking genocides, than just admit that she used racist tropes in the books of the Raksura in 2011. She literally made the villains of that fucking series every racist caricature you can fucking think of. All of them. They want to go around raping people. They're cannibals. She tells us so many times that they are butt fucking ugly, because they all have black scales and they're ugly, and all but saying they have bullet-shaped fucking heads. And then they have secret, beautiful, white-skinned, ethereally beautiful, magically beautiful white-skinned forms that they use to trick people into thinking they're actually good, because white people are just so ethereally beautiful that everybody thinks they're beautiful, but actually secretly they're the evil, black-skinned, ugly, bullet-shaped headed demons who want to rape and cannibalize you. And it's just like, she literally just made them every single racist caricature that has ever existed in all of propaganda throughout history, including fantasy and sci-fi. She just did all of the caricaturizations and then made those the villains, and then just refused to accept any fucking criticism for this, and it literally spent a decade ignoring every single fucking essay explaining that this is messed up, this is fucking racist, and spent literally a decade ignoring all criticism only to cherry pick 2 reviews that defend her racist writing by defending British colonization. I'm not even making that up. I could not have fucking imagined that scenario if you fucking paid me to think of the most ridiculous fucking defense for a book series ever. She literally found 2 reviews by the same person defending her against the basic racism that is in her series that people with morals point out, by saying that if you think Martha Wells made the Fell inherently evil, which they literally are, she literally has one of the beloved characters suggest doing eugenics on them to breed out the evil, then that's as absurd as saying that British colonizers were evil. And it's like, yeah, British colonizers were evil. That's not up for debate. The only way you can think they're not evil is if you're literally a white supremacist. And at this point, Martha Wells just is, because she's literally shilling for Apple TV. Apple! While they whitewash her protagonist, and she tells poor people to waste their grocery money subscribing to Apple, the people whitewashing her own character. While she's still continuing to double down on the slavery apologism and genocide apologism now in this whole entire fucking series. It's like, she's just a white supremacist. There's only so many fucking white supremacist things you can do before you're just a fucking white supremacist, and that's the only thing left to call you. If you've seen my videos about Witch King, she literally made up an entire group of fantasy indigenous people, heavily coded as Native Americans, and she made them up just so that she could pin her obsession with pedophilia and eugenics on them, to then claim explicitly and implicitly, but mostly explicitly through dialogue within the story, that if you think pedophilia and eugenics and trafficking children to use as broodmares for a eugenics program, if you think that is horrifying, then you're the real racist, and also you probably support genocide. Because she decided that her fantasy Native American people that she made up literally just to endorse eugenics and pedophilia, she had them get genocided somehow entirely, because it's not like there's a diaspora or anything. She had them be successfully genocided by people who were upset about them literally making deals with devils, a thing they actually were doing. So it's horrible every which fucking way you look at it. Anyways, now we're still on paragraph 2. All that came from, I was still doing my job, because Martha Wells thinks framing being literal enslaved property, that's what the chattel in chattel slavery means. It means your property, because there's many forms of slavery. Chattel slavery means you are literal property. You have no civil rights. You are property. And Martha Wells thinks framing being enslaved as just being enslaved to be a meat shield, an expendable meat shield whose sole purpose is to jump in between your slave owners, the people renting you out, and whatever danger is threatening them. That's what Murderbot is enslaved to do. And Martha Wells has decided that we're just going to frame that as doing a job. And that's it. And then even in 2025, in interviews, she's still just referring to it as a job. Doing a job. Nothing else. Hold on, I have to turn the fucking light on. It's dark. She's literally just downplaying slavery every single fucking time she talks about it. Even when it's not in universe and there's no excuses for her, like an in-universe excuse for her to be doing this. Like, there are some instances where it would make sense for characters to not be referring to slavery as slavery. There's only very specific circumstances where that works, though, and it doesn't fucking work when you, the author, are talking about your shit in an interview out of universe. As the fucking writer, you should be calling it slavery, because that's what it fucking is. But then even in Rapport, the new book, with characters, none of whom have ever... There is no reason for the characters in Rapport to ever be just refusing to say slavery and call it what it is. But even there, we're still downplaying it and pretending it's just a job. It's totally like working at fucking Walmart or something. Totally the same thing. I was also still doing my job on a new contract and hoping Dr. Valescu and Dr. Bharadwaj finished their survey soon so we could get back to the habitat and I could watch episode 397 of Rise and Fall of Sanctuary Moon. So yeah, that's paragraph 2. And it's like, also there's 8 named slave owner characters in this story. And again, I am going to repeat myself. If this story were actually written by somebody who's not fucking racist and not just a literal white supremacist, there's no other word for her at this point. She's had literally 20 fucking years to accept any of the criticism that the fucking racist caricatures in the books of the Raksura brought her. She's just doubled down endlessly forever, and she's just gonna keep doing that until she dies. She does not want to become a better person. She does not want to ever admit that she's wrong. She is a white supremacist, and she's just going to be a white supremacist until she dies, because she doesn't want to change. Because that would require changing and growing as a person, a thing she thinks is impossible, simply because she refuses to admit that she was fucking racist and used racist caricatures. Yeah. If this story were written by somebody who actually thinks slavery is bad, Dr. Bharadwaj and Valescu would literally die in this chapter. There's a little bug. Dr. Bharadwaj and Dr. Valescu would die in this chapter, getting eaten by the totally not a graboid, and Murderbot would be like, oh, damn, I wasn't expecting good news today, but damn, that's great. I'm fine with this. Let me just hack the whatever logs there are here to make it seem like I'm trying to help, but just so tragically unable to get there in time. Like, damn, 2 out of fucking 8 slave owners are already dead. They just got themselves killed and I didn't even have to do anything. Like, that's how this would be going if this story were actually anti-slavery. Because you can't be anti-slavery and think that slave owners deserve to live and are pure cinnamon rolls who deserve to be rescued while they are actively enslaving someone. Those are in fact mutually exclusive fucking opinions to have. You cannot think that slavery is bad, actually truly fucking horrific, but then also think that the slave owners deserve to live. Slave owners should die. All slave owners. Yes, including your favorite characters that the white woman from Texas made ambiguously black and brown specifically to go, you can't be mad at them for being slave owners. They're not white. So that means it's not racism. And it's like, no, we can tell what you're fucking doing. The Animorphs did this too. So many fucking things do this too. You're literally not different from fucking Disney making Marvel movies where they make the villains scary black and brown people who say, I don't remember off the top of my head, I just forgot. Anyways, it's literally just more racism, not less. Yeah, Dr. Valescu and Dr. Bardwaj should fucking die in this scene, and that should be treated as a good thing that Murderbot is happy about. And because I don't know how to explain to you people that you can't be anti-racist and write a story where you expect people to mourn the deaths of slave owners. You can't do those things. Sorry you don't actually have fucking morals or actually think slavery's bad. That's how this works. It truly is. Anyways, I admit I was distracted. It was a boring contract so far, and I was thinking about backburnering the status alert channel and trying to access music on the entertainment feed without hub system logging the extra activity. It was trickier to do it in the field than it was in the habitat. Also, I'll just say ahead of time, Martha Wells keeps complaining about the stories where robots go rogue and just start attacking people for no reason. And it's like, it's not no reason. They always have some fucking reason, and it's usually a very good fucking reason when you look at it from their perspective. Yeah, she keeps complaining about shit like that, but then she literally does that exact fucking thing in here. With Hub System. Hub System in this is the robot that goes rogue and starts trying to kill people for no reason. But then we're just not supposed to acknowledge that that's what's going on. The thing that she claims, the trope she claims she hates, but she's literally doing it unironically. And it's like, okay, well, you do realize you're a fucking hypocrite, right? She doesn't, because that would require using critical thinking skills. This assessment zone was a barren stretch of coastal island with low, flat hills rising and falling and thick greenish-black grass up to my ankles. Not much in the way of flora. You just described grass up to your ankles. I don't know about any of you people, but have you ever looked at grass? Have you ever looked at a fucking lawn? Maybe not like a golf course lawn. Go outside if you have grass and look at your grass. Do you know how many different species there are of grass mixed together in most lawns? And some of it's not even grass. Like, there's not much in the way of flora, despite me mentioning that we are on a coastal island with covered in plants as far as the eye can see, because we don't mention any parts that are not covered in plants. And also, it doesn't seem like Martha Wells understands how ecosystems work. Not much in the way of flora or fauna, except a bunch of different-sized bird-like things and some puffy, floaty things that were harmless as far as we knew. So they're different sizes, which means they're probably different species, and none of them get descriptions, and all of the people insisting that, oh, this is just because Murderbot wouldn't care about any of these things. It's not a problem with Martha Wells' writing. It's just characterized narration. It's like, no, it's not. Go read Witch King. Go read the books of the Ragsura. This is why I've been complaining that her writing hasn't improved since the fucking 90s. The coast was dotted with big bare craters, one of which Bardwaj and Valescu. Also, it's very annoying that we refer to them first as Dr. Bardwaj and Dr. Valescu, but then they just drop the doctor from their names. And these are their last names, and we don't know most of their first names. And it's just fucking weird and annoying. And especially in the new story, Rapport inserts obnoxiously long fanfiction title because it's written shittily like fanfiction. She has the protagonist referring to her own fathers by their first names in the fucking narration. It is literally only in dialogue that we get the reveal that those are her fucking parents. That's not how people think. That's not how your narration should work. It's just so bad. And in this, we're doing the same fucking thing. In dialogue, at least in this book, all of these people are referred to as Doctor. Insert last name. But in the narration, it's just their last name. It's like, you need to have consistency, unless a character is specifically calling people the wrong names in their head on purpose to make fun of them, but then using their correct name out loud, which is one thing. This is just bad writing. because it's inconsistent for no good fucking reason. And that's especially obvious in Rapport, where the fucking protagonist is referring to her parents by their first names and giving zero indication through that narration that they're her parents. The coast was dotted with big bare craters, one of which Baradwaj and Valescu were taking samples in. The planet had a ring, which from our current position dominated the horizon when you looked out to sea. I was looking at the sky and mentally poking at the feed when the bottom of the crater exploded. Yeah, that's that ring that, like, never gets described ever again, and we don't even get a proper description of it. Like, we don't even get to know what color it is. We don't know what color this fucking sky is. We get no proper descriptions of anything. We get told the grass is blue, black, or green and black. What was it? Can I flip backwards page, please? Thank you. Thick, greenish, black grass. Like, imagine if this story was about Murderbot getting stranded on this fucking planet and just learning to live with the wildlife and shit. Imagine that. And learning that it can in fact do something besides be a meat shield and can actually enjoy its fucking life. But no. We gotta do slavery apologism instead. I was looking at the sky and mentally poking at the feed when the bottom of the crater exploded. That's paragraph. It really doesn't want to let me turn the page back. Gosh. 1, 2, 3, 4. That was paragraph 4, which started on page 1. Oh, what? What are you fucking talking about? Oh, these motherfuckers? These fucking cheaters! Holy shit. That's fucking... What the fuck is this shit? Oh my god. Okay, look. Cover. Blank page just says all systems read. We got a list of other books she'd published before this. Continues on to the next page. Okay. A blank page. We get the title. The Murderbot Diaries. Martha Wells. Tom Doherty Associates Book, New York. Well, fuck you, Tom Doherty, whoever the hell you are. Copyright, blah. Another blank page that just says all systems read at the top. And then... Chapter 1. Do you see what they're doing here? Look what... That's page 9. They are numbering chapter 1, page 1, as page 9. So this is not... How many pages did I fucking say it was? This is not... Oh my god. They're numbering... Oh my god, these fucking cheaters. They're literally continuing to number the pages that aren't the actual story. Including the first few pages that are in every fucking book. They're counting the copyright page as a page. They're counting the 2 blank title pages as pages so that they can pretend that this book has more pages of story than it actually does. There are not actually 149 pages of story in here. There are 140 because they are fucking artificially starting page 1 on page 9. Oh my fucking god. Also, while we're on the topic of scams, when they were selling this as an ebook, they weren't telling people how long it was. Especially not now. They're still not telling people how long it is when they're charging extra money because they increased the price because of the Apple shilling that they're doing. Oh my god. People had no clue that they were buying a book that's less than a centimeter thick for the same price that you could literally go and buy an actual fucking novel for. Oh my god. I didn't even notice while reading page 1. They're literally starting the count on 9. Jesus fucking Christ. Oh my god. Like, there's so many and then on top of that, there's 1. How many blank pages at the back of this? We have that. 1 blank page. 2 blank page. 3 blank page. 4 blank page. 5 blank page. 6 blank page. 7 blank pages at the back of the book. And they start the page count on 9. That's when they're starting the story. So, literally, oh my god. Oh my fucking god, it is such a scam. And then Martha Wells has the gall to pretend that she hates corporate greed when she is doing the corporate greed. Because here's a secret, everybody. Nobody is forcing Martha Wells at gunpoint to publish with Tor Publisher. She made that decision herself. She is the one doubling down endlessly on this bullshit. Literally scamming people and lying about the fucking page numbers in this fucking book, and then putting 7 whole entire blank pages at the back of the book to try and buff out that less than a centimeter page count as much as fucking possible. Oh my god. Literally starting, we're just, so literally page 2, we're pretending that's 10 pages into the fucking story so that they can literally claim that, oh my god, they are fucking scammers. Tor, which used to be called Reactor, no, it was called Tor when they published this. They're now called Reactor because I guess, this is from Macmillan Publishing Group. It's one of their trademarks. Yeah, they're fucking scammers and have been from the start, and this is just, I've never seen anybody else talk about the fact that the story, they're literally claiming that the first 9 fucking pages that are not the fucking story, it's just, I'm doing it again. You have to fucking suffer with me. All systems red. That's all it says. List of other books that she's written, and they went with font so large so that they could stretch that and didn't fill this gap down here and didn't fill this gap up here, specifically so that they could pretend that there's more stories here, that it's worth printing this on 2 different pages. Look how big the spaces between those lines are. They could have fucking oh my god. They could have fit all of this shit on 1 page, but they purposefully spread it out to 2 to inflate the page count. And then the back of that page is blank, and then we just get the name of the book again, and that. And then the next one is the copyright. And then another fucking blank page just for the fucking title. And then another blank page, and then it's chapter 1, and then there's 7 blank pages at the back of the book. Oh my god. But yeah, fuck that. We're on page 2. They're calling it page 10, but it's page 2. Oh my god. Oh my fucking god. Jesus fucking Christ. For the record, I would rather, commit murder, multiple murders, than do something like this with my own writing. And if anybody ever suggested doing a scam like this with my writing, I would pick up my computer and I would beat the person who suggested it to death. And then I would blow up their publishing company. What? No. Oh my god. We're on page 2. It's not page 10. It's page 2. When you're not a fucking... Oh my god. This is so fucking ridiculous. We're on page 2. This is paragraph 5. Paragraph 5. Because paragraph 4 was... Also, again, you see the amount of gap at the bottom of the fucking page? I wish I knew where the Star Wars books were put, or I could be showing you a fucking counterexample. Do you see how much space they're leaving at the fucking bottom of the page, and the top of the page, and the side of the page? It's good to have a margin. You don't need to have this big of a fucking margin. It's the only reason it's like this is to artificially inflate the amount of pages that this book takes up to get it to less than a centimeter. What would this fucking look like if it were actually printed with, economy in mind? Actually fitting as many words onto each page as is possible to make it a reasonable fucking price for a book. And, no, that's not... $16 for this shit is not a reasonable price, no matter which way you fucking look at it. It would be a reasonable price if it were filled with extremely HD, detailed color photos because it's like some kind of fucking, I don't know, encyclopedia or something. This is just text that they are stretching out as far as they can fucking get it and literally lying about what page you're on to convince you, if you look at the back of the fucking book, that there's more pages of story than there actually are. They are literally counting her fucking stupid little blurb as a page that's in the story itself. And then there's 7 blank pages at the back. My fucking God. Let's read the last line in paragraph 4. I was looking at the sky and mentally poking at the feed when the bottom of the crater exploded. And this is where, first paragraph just needs to be thrown entirely into the fucking dumpster. But if we ignore the existence of the first paragraph for 5 seconds, this is where an actually anti-slavery story by somebody who actually thinks slavery is horrific would diverge entirely and never be the same again. Because what we get next is Murderbot throwing itself in the line of fire, throwing itself literally into a graboid. It's not a graboid, but I'm calling it a graboid. Go watch the Tremors movies. They're actually good. Don't watch the last one, though. It's fucking racist, even though the first few literally were not racist and were going out of their way to not be racist, and then that one came out and they're like, we can be racist now. Racism is good, right? Let's just do some racism. For no reason. Because we can. It's not like the other movies exist or anything. Go watch the Tremors movie. It might make you paranoid about stepping on the ground for a bit. But who gives a shit? It's good. Just play The Floor is Lava and you'll have fun. Anyways, yeah. Anybody who was actually writing an anti-racist story would have Murderbot watch the 2 slave owners. It's 2 literal slave owners. People who went... I've never read The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I don't even properly know what it is. Is it a series? Is it a single book? Is it like set up like an actual little encyclopedia, like those dragonology books things? Is it just a regular novel? I don't fucking know. But I know there's some quote in it that I've seen 2 people reference where it's like, space is big. Space is really, 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 really big. Big doesn't even begin to describe it. Space is fucking big. Do you know how long and how many resources and how much effort it takes to go from one solar system to another, even in science fiction like this? It takes a lot of fucking effort. And the Preservation Ox team went multiple solar systems out of their way. So far out of their way. They left their little socialist utopia where they just do slavery, but don't think about that at all. It's a socialist utopia. Ignore the slavery. They went solar systems out of their way to go into the corporation rim for no fucking reason at all to rent out a slave for a thing that is so inconsequential we literally still in July of 2025 don't have an explanation for what the fuck they were even doing here, that they think any of it could ever possibly justify becoming slave owners. Because yes, you fucking, oh my God, you racist sacks of shit in this fandom trying to defend Martha Wells' racism. If you rent out a slave, you go out of your fucking way to rent out a fucking slave. You're a slave owner now. Congratulations. The fucking technicality of, oh, well, we're just renting the slave. It's not like we bought them. It's not like we enslaved them. We're just renting them to use as a meat shield. Why are you getting mad at me? I'm just a victim here. This is literally what people in this fandom are spewing. They're literally saying, well, it's totally fine to rent out a slave. Because, you're not the one who enslaved them. It's not like you're buying a slave. You're just renting them out. Just because you're rented out a slave to use as a meat shield, it doesn't mean you're not responsible for that slavery. You're just personally benefiting from it from paying money to use a person as a meat shield, as your slave. And people are trying to pretend that the Preservation Ox team aren't inherently monstrous fucking people for doing this. And then the book doesn't even try to justify it. It just expects us to not give a shit because we're told that they are pure cinnamon rolls who just didn't know that slaves were people. So you can't blame them or be upset with them in any way for renting out a slave to use as a meat shield on a mission that they don't need to be on. If you watched me play Alien Isolation, you may have seen the dawning realization as I play Alien Isolation of, oh, this is just shitty alien fan fiction. That's why this is going on. It's just shitty alien fan fiction. Why are they on a survey planet? Because that's what happens in alien movies. That's it. That's why. And why are there 8 fucking people? Because that's what happens in an alien movie. But the difference between an alien movie and this is that alien movies have a bunch of characters. I fucking forget the names of the 2 obnoxious ones about the ancient aliens bullshit. One of them was more explicitly about the ancient aliens bullshit than the other one. It was either Prometheus or Covenant. I can't fucking tell them apart. They both take place on the LV-427 before Alien happens. Where the fuck am I going with this? Oh, yeah, there's so many characters in those because they're horror movies, and the more characters you have in a horror movie, especially an alien horror movie, the more creative ways you can write into the story for people to die. One person gets attacked by a xenomorph ancestor mutant form thingamajiggy. Somebody else falls into acid. Somebody gets set on fire. I don't know what was going on with the guy. Did he pop out of the ground? Like, did he crawl up out of the ground? Was he, like, when he's, like, they put the ramp down for the ship, and then, like, it was confusing. I couldn't tell if his body was, like, contorted, or, like, if he just popped up out of the ground, and I don't know. It was confusing. The point I'm trying to make here is that movies like Alien, Covenant, Prometheus, whichever one fucking came first, they have so many people because that just means you get more ways to kill them all off and practice your CGI / practical effects and just think, alright, who wants to fall into acid? Raise your hand. Completely unrelated, but if you've ever seen the Resident Evil movie and also the Alien vs. Predator movie, somebody needs to fucking tell me, was it the actor guy or the director guy who said, hey, can your / my character die the exact same way twice in a row in 2 separate movies? Can we do a laser net, please? Can I please get chopped? Like, which way did it go? Did the director go to the actor and say, hey, remember how we killed off your character in the Resident Evil movie? Do you want to do that again in the Alien vs. Predator movie? You want to get sliced to bits by a laser net? Or did the actor go to the director and say, it was really fun how we killed off my character in the Resident Evil movie. Can we do that again? Can we somehow work a laser net into the fucking plot so I can get chopped into pieces by a laser net? If you haven't seen those movies, nothing I am saying makes any sense at all. I want to know who approached who with that idea because it's hilarious. Anyways, I don't know why it took me so long to realize that they were both directed by the same person, because they literally have the same person playing the same type of character, dies the exact same fucking way, and also they both do the, let's go into a big scary underground thingy and we'll show a digital diagram of the big scary underground place and show map markers where everybody is. And it's like, they're both good movies. It's funny. I want to know. Did the actor say, can we kill my character off again? Or did the actor go, hey, you want to kill your character off the exact same way again? Any fucking ways. Anybody that's not racist, right now, Murderbot would be continuing to stand up on that slope, maybe taking a few steps backward just to be safe, and then watching as the slave owners get eaten by a graboid, and Murderbot would be thinking, damn, I was not expecting that to happen, but I'm fucking fine with that. All I gotta do is edit whatever fucking logs are keeping track of my behavior and make it seem like I'm totally coming to the rescue. Murderbot could even invent a whole dramatic scenario inspired by the TV shows it's watching, where it does its tragically beautiful best to rescue Baradwaj and Valescu and blah blah blah, like all this shit. It could make such a dramatic thing just with fucking with and hacking the audio and whatever the fuck else is going on in the situation for monitoring that's going out, so that everybody else thinks it's trying to be a hero and failing and just so tragically unsuccessful. It's so sad. It tried its best. That's what would be happening if this story were actually anti-slavery, but it's written by a white woman from Texas whose ultimate fantasy is being such a nice slave owner that slaves kill themselves to protect her. So what we get instead is I didn't bother to make a verbal emergency call. I sent the visual feed from my field camera to Dr. Mensa's and jumped down into the crater. As I scrambled down the sandy slope, I could already hear Mensa over the emergency comm channel yelling at someone to get the... Actually, hold on. So Murderbot is the one that had to tell everybody else what's happening, so it wouldn't even have to immediately start faking going to the rescue. It could wait and pretend that it had just been too preoccupied, tragically trying its best to rescue the poor doctors Valescu and Baradwaj that will be so missed. They didn't deserve to die getting eaten by a space graboid, but poor Murderbot just couldn't save them. Literally just... It could be doing that, but no. Nope. As I scrambled down, this was written by a racist, so we're not doing that. We're not here to celebrate slave owners getting eaten by space aliens, a thing that everybody should cheer for. Nope. As I scrambled down the sandy slope, I could already hear Mensa over the emergency comm channel, yelling at someone to get the hopper in the air now. They were about 10 kilos away, working on another part of the island, so there was no way they were going to get here in time to help. Also, you know what they could have just done if they wanted to pretend that there's more pages in this book than there actually are? They could have made actual large font and advertised it as having larger font to avoid eye strain. That would have been an actual nice accessibility feature they could have done, which would have given them more pages with which to pretend that the story is longer than it actually is, since they're lying through their fucking teeth by starting this off and pretending that page 1 is actually page 9. So we're literally pretending that page 2 of the story is actually 10 pages in, when it's not. Because it's a fucking scam. A scam that Martha Wells is working, like, no... Whatever. You get the fucking picture. Conflicting commands filled my feed, but I didn't pay attention. Even if I hadn't borked my own governor module, the emergency feed took priority, and it was chaotic, too, with the automated hub system wanting data and trying to send me data I didn't need yet, and Mensa sending me telemetry from the hopper, which I also didn't need, but it was easier to ignore than hub system simultaneously demanding answers and trying to supply them. And it's like... So yeah, Murderbot could just be standing up on that hill, chilling. Well, not chilling, because it would have to be hacking all of this shit to make it seem like it's doing something, but it could literally just stand up there safely, hacking stuff to present a dramatic scenario where it just tries so hard, but just can't make it in time to rescue those poor graboid, food. I don't know. The poor graboid kibble. Yeah. That could be happening, but Martha Wells is racist, so instead we're just doing slavery apologism. So that was 4, 5. So that was paragraph 6. So we're now on paragraph 7, which is on page 3, which they are claiming is 11 pages into the story. It's not. It's 3 pages in. In the middle of all that, I hit the bottom of the crater. Period. I have small energy weapons built into both arms, but the one I went for was the big projectile weapon clamped to my back. Period. The hostile that had just exploded up out of the ground had a really big mouth, so I felt I needed a really big gun. Period. And again, Martha Wells, she has no clue how to not make her protagonist the most ridiculously overpowered person in existence, but then she also wants to pretend that they're totally oppressed. Like in the books of the Raxer, she literally has the protagonists be super-powered, literal super predators, apex predators, who evolved to eat other people. And then she expects us to believe that their natural prey, who has literally zero defense against them, are oppressing them by being reasonably fucking afraid when they just appear out of nowhere, when it is well known and literal fucking trauma ongoing for all of these prey species that their literal family members got eaten by their cousins last week. But then we're supposed to pretend that the prey are oppressing the apex predators who evolved to eat them because the prey are scared when they first meet before they get to know them. As though oppressed people are oppressed because we actually genuinely fucking pose a life-threatening danger to the fucking oppressors. And that's again what she's doing in Witch King. She's trying to frame demons and witches as, oh, being oppressed and not trusted around children, just like queer people. But then the witches and demons are literally abusing children factually in the fucking book and torturing people in front of children. And it's like, no, the reason that you get told you're endangering these children is not because you're a witch or a demon. It's because you are objectively abusing these children. Martha Wells, you cannot say, look at my characters, they abuse children, isn't that awesome? Oh, everybody's so mean to them just because they abuse children, and try to frame this as, see, conservatives are wrong to say that queer people, especially trans people right now, are dangerous to children. Your characters are literal child abusers. You cannot fucking try to equate that to conservatives saying queer people in general, and especially right now trans people, because we're getting thrown under the fucking bus. You can't say, yeah, demons and witches who are actively abusing children for fucking real, on page, right there. That them being mistrusted around children is the exact same thing as trans people being considered pedophiles simply for existing. It's like, no, you're just being a fucking bigot right now. You are literally the one comparing queer people to child abusers because you expect us to sympathize with your child abuser characters because they get told they're abusing children, a thing they literally are doing. You're the one writing them to be child abusers. And then you expect us to take that and say, yeah, they're just like me. They're just oppressed like me. It's like, no, they're not oppressed. They're not oppressed at all. And they're not fucking, oh my god, that's, real fucking oppressed people are not oppressed because we actually abuse children. Like your literal witch and demon characters who are literally torturing people in front of children. And I am gonna keep bringing it up. Refusing to give Sanja medical care for her broken toes. Anyways, we are on page fucking 3. I dragged Bharadwaj out of its mouth and shoved myself in there instead. Because because what slaves should do, according to Martha Wells, is literally throw themselves into the mouth of the monster that's trying to eat their slave owners. Because that's how you know they're one of the good ones. Literally. This is why this is a racist fucking story. Because we are literally saying that it is good for slaves to literally endanger their lives to protect their slave owners, and therefore the implication is that if Murderbot didn't risk its life to rescue its slave owners, literally shoving itself into the mouth of the monster that's trying to eat the slave owners, that would make Murderbot a bad person. on some fucking racist on Anon was trying to harass me because I'm pointing out Martha Wells' racism, and then because I turned off Anons, they're now harassing a writing blog because just and claiming that, well, if Murderbot was happy about its slave owners getting eaten, that would prove that the stereotypes that slaves are violent is true, so that would actually be more racist. And it's like, you are so racist, you don't grasp that there's a difference between portraying and doing propaganda that slaves are violent and just the basic fucking fact of reality that oppressed people have and deserve the right to violently fucking rebel and just, be happy when bad things happen to their oppressors. This person is so racist that they are claiming that if you are happy that your literal slave owners got eaten by a graboid, that means that you are the real racist and proving the racist propaganda right. So they are now literally actively arguing against any form of rebellion by slaves at all, by saying that slaves rebelling in such a mild way as not shoving themselves into the mouth of a monster that's trying to eat their slave owners. They're trying to say that that would be the real racism, because you're proving the oppressor's right by rebelling. And it's like, how many racist hoops do you have to jump through to get there? Anyways, I dragged Bharadwaj out of its mouth and shoved myself in there instead, and discharged my weapon down its throat and then up toward where I hoped the brain would be. I'm not sure if all that happened in that order. I'd have to replay my own field camera feed. All I knew was that I had Bharadwaj and it didn't, and it had disappeared back down the tunnel. Because the only good slave, according to this whole fucking series, is a slave that will happily sacrifice itself to protect its slave owners, as you will see more than half a dozen times. Actually, let me count. Half a dozen sex slaves in Book 2 kill themselves to protect their explicit fucking rapist slave owners. That's 6. I don't know where any of my washable markers went, so I can't write a checklist on my arm. Murderbot attempts to fucking kill itself explicitly twice in this story for the sole purpose of protecting its slave owners. It also just dove right into that graboid's mouth. We're going to count that as attempted self-sacrifice for the sake of protecting slave owners, because it's only fucking luck that didn't kill it. Like, I think I said that Murderbot does this shit, tries to sacrifice itself, and threatens its own life to save its slave owners. I think I counted 6 times in this story alone. We'll count as we go through. So this is number 1. Literally shoving itself into the mouth of a graboid to protect its slave owners instead of staying safe and letting them die. Then we have those 6 sex slaves, and no, that's not me misspeaking. They are literally sex slaves. Kill themselves, we're told. We're told this happened in the past. They killed themselves heroically to protect their rapists, slave owners. Book 3 has... Yeah, that was book 2. Book 3, you're just gonna get spoilers, I don't give a shit. Has Mickey kill itself to protect its slave owners again. Book 4 has Murderbot again endanger its life to protect its slave owners, willingly going back into the territory of the company that enslaved it in the first place. Just doing that alone counts, and then it purposefully walks into what it knows is going to be a fucking trap to save the slave owners, and then does this shit again at the end of that book, where it is risking its fucking life, doing stuff with the ship again to save everybody, not just itself. It's doing this explicitly to save all of the slave owners. And that's book 4. Book 5, so much shit going on in book 5. I'm gonna stop counting now because I forgot to actually count that whole time. It's a bunch. We'll just go with a dozen times that slaves in this series kill themselves or attempt to kill themselves and endanger their lives willingly to protect their slave owners, and this is portrayed as heroic instead of a thing that they should never have to fucking do. And in a story where we actually think that slavery is fucking bad, wouldn't fucking happen unless the slave in question was literally being forced into it, and that is treated as a horrifying thing. But that's not what's happening here, despite Martha Wells confirming in interviews that none of them actually have a choice in this. But then she says that, and then she follows that up by presenting that as though it's displaying their moral purity, because they're some of the good ones. The only good slave is a slave that will fucking kill itself to protect its slave owners. Yep, let's continue. We're on page 3/11. They're claiming it's page 11. It's page 3. She was unconscious and bleeding through her suit from massive wounds in her right leg and side. I clamped the weapon back into its harness so I could lift her with both arms. I had lost the armor on my left arm and a lot of the flesh underneath, but my non-organic parts were still working. Another burst of commands from the governor module came through, and I backburnered it without bothering to decode them. Bharadwaj, not having non-organic parts and not as easily repaired as me, was definitely a priority here, and I was mainly interested in what the med system was trying to tell me on the emergency feed. But first, I needed to get her out of the crater. And again, so we're getting the vaguest fucking descriptions possible of what Murderbot's injuries are, but it is later compared to a human losing an entire fucking limb. So Murderbot, who is a cyborg and feels fucking pain, has had most of the flesh on its arm eaten off. Also, you'll notice that there was like zero fucking description of that whole incident right there. So we're just left to guess how any of this actually fucking happened. Yeah. Also, whatever. No, I'm not gonna bother. Yeah, so Murderbot has endangered its life to rescue a slave owner. A thing it didn't need to fucking do, because its governor module was hacked. If its governor module was not hacked, it would have been forced on pain of instant death to do that. It didn't have to do this, but it chooses to because it's one of the good ones, according to Martha Wells. Martha Wells literally posits in this whole fucking book, this book in particular, just starting out, and the whole entire series afterwards just continues to double down on it, that the only good slave is a slave who will willingly kill themselves to protect their slave owners. Those are the only ones who deserve to live, and they don't actually get to live because they've all killed themselves to protect their slave owners. A thing that she then tells us in interviews they actually had no choice about, but don't be horrified by that. It just shows how good they are. It's just their natural state of being, despite me literally just explaining that this is a thing unnaturally forced on them, that they are literally brainwashed on the fundamental core of their being to have to do this shit. But it's just showing how moral they are, because good slaves will kill themselves to protect their slave owners. And, but yeah, guys, you can trust that this white woman from Texas who wrote an entire book about this shit, dedicated to worshiping the concept of slaves killing themselves to protect their precious cinnamon roll slave owners. Yeah, she's totally not racist, I'm sure. I'm sure it's all just a coincidence. During all this, Valescu was huddled on the churned up rock, losing his shit. Not that I was unsympathetic. I was far less vulnerable in this situation than he was, and I wasn't exactly having a great time either. And, I'll finish the paragraph. I said, Dr. Valescu, you need to come with me now. Let me repeat that. I wasn't exactly having a great time either. If you watched my videos of me reading Witch King, you'll have noticed that she just does this all the time. She wrote this book in 2017. Do I really want to do math? No. We'll say 6 years. I'm bad at math because I have dyslexia. And every time the number 9 and 7 are next to each other, I always read them backwards, and not one single math teacher ever noticed this. They just gave me Fs because I was answering the wrong question and not realizing it because I fucking read it wrong because of my dyslexia. Anyways, She wrote this, let's just go with 6 years before she wrote Witch King. But she's still doing the same exact shit. So across 6 years, where she should be growing and learning as a person and as a writer, because skills never stop improving. It's not like a video game where you get an XP cap and then you never get better. Every skill you ever do is always getting better. All the fucking time. Every time you write anything, you are getting better at writing, even if you don't notice. But Martha Wells refuses to fucking just learn and accept constructive criticism. So instead of showing us that fight scene, we're just getting told, or just even describing what Murderbot's actual injuries look like, or what it's feeling in this situation. We just get told, I wasn't exactly having a great time either. Kinda like how Kai just abruptly tells us that he's really fucking angry right now. A thing I'm never going to stop making fun of, just so you know. Because it's so fucking hilariously bad. It's like, and that we just get told he's really fucking angry right now. But nothing before that was indicating that in literally any way. Because she refuses to, she's literally failing the most basic creative writing principle of show, don't tell. She doesn't show us that Murderbot is severely injured. She just tells us, I wasn't exactly having a great time either. She didn't show us that Kai was really fucking angry right now. She just told us that out of fucking nowhere. And even in Data Ghost, a story she just published, July 2025. It was on July 1st, 2025, in the collection, I think that one was, do I gotta go and get it? Or can I remember the name? I don't know. That's another short story that's set in the Murderbot Diaries universe, but is not about Murderbot. It's about some random fucking characters, and it's also horribly written. And again, she's doing the same thing, where she won't describe anything to us that matters, and barely describes anything that even doesn't. And then, like, a character is going through something, like, that should be super dramatic, and tense, and meaningful, and could literally, under the hands of a competent writer, and I have seen it done by competent writers, mostly in the Danny Phantom fandom, as a kid, from fanfictions I read as a kid, you could give that prompt, that writing prompt, describe that situation as a writing prompt. I actually will do that. I'm going to do that as an experiment now. I'm not even, well, I guess I will read that out at some point. You could give that writing prompt to the Danny Phantom fandom, and they would come up with 50 fucking short stories that do it perfectly. But Martha Wells doesn't do any of that. We just get told, like, this thing that by all rights should be extremely dramatic and stressful and deep and everything possible. But it's not, because she doesn't describe it. She doesn't let us sit with it at all. The plot, the storytelling, it should be grinding to a halt during this thing, so that we can experience each excruciating moment with the fucking character as they are going through this shit that I guarantee you the Danny Phantom fandom will explode so much. And then we get nothing. We get, like, some fucking skimmed, they did blah and blah and blah, and then had to sit down and try not to cry. And it's like, okay, but them wanting to cry comes out of fucking nowhere emotionally, because you haven't given us any reason to think they're upset, because you haven't described a single thing that's going on here, even though this isn't a difficult thing to make dramatic and mentally exhausting as well as physically exhausting. I'm not even going to tell you what exactly it is I'm talking about until I do a video where I'm reading that and you get to see my reactions to it, because, like, I want you to be surprised. You might be imagining some horrible things, like, it's bad, but it's not, like, it would be a bad thing to go through. As I've said, entire short stories could consist of literally nothing but that from start to finish, and could literally begin as soon as it starts and then end as soon as it stops. That could be the whole thing. There could be an entire fucking short film genre or even just film genre in general. It wouldn't even have to be short. That consists of nothing but this. You'll see when I make that video, or you can just go read it for yourself. Data Ghost by Martha Wells. It's got all of her problems, and it's just bad. What was I saying? Oh, yeah, the fact that we just get told. I wasn't exactly having a great time either, but we're not getting any description of anything to make that a believable statement. Like, you can have a character be in shock, but we can still feel the emotions and the trauma of what they're going through along with them. But that's not what's happening here. We're just not doing writing. It's bad writing. It's objectively bad writing. So this is page 4, which they are claiming is page 12. He didn't respond. I said, Dr. Valescu, you need to come with me now. He didn't respond. Med system was advising a tranq shot and blah blah blah, but I was clamping one arm on Dr. Bharadwaj's suit to keep her from bleeding out and supporting her head with the other, and despite everything, I only have 2 hands. I told my helmet to retract so he could see my human face. If the hostile came back and bit me again, this would be a bad mistake, because I did need the organic parts of my head. I made my voice firm and warm and gentle and said, Dr. Valescu, it's gonna be fine, okay? But you need to get up and come help me get her out of here. The reason Murderbot needs the organic parts of its head is because it's a fucking cyborg, and it kind of needs its fucking brain to be alive. I'm thirsty. I'm getting a drink. I'm back. I should probably check the battery. 27%. I think we'll keep going. My phone will surely tell me if the battery's gonna die. I'll try to read 2 more pages and then, unless I get interrupted with another half an hour. How long is this? Hour and 36 minutes. We got 4 pages in. Oh, but if we go with what they're saying, it's 12 pages because they're fucking lying scammers. That Dr. Valescu, it's gonna be fine, okay? But you need to get up and come with me, help me get her out of here. That did it. He shoved to his feet and staggered over to me, still shaking. I turned my good side toward him and said, grab my arm, okay? Hold on. And Murderbot says it's good side because it's missing 20% of its fucking body mass, which we're told later is the equivalent to a human, a real human, because Murderbot is a fucking cyborg. It literally is human. It's just been dehumanized in universe and in Martha Wells' head to justify enslaving it, because Martha Wells hates physically disabled people and thinks that if you have prosthetics, that means you're not fucking human anymore. She's literally the fucking... Again, she's a white supremacist. She's literally actively, gleefully cheering on the whitewashing of her own character and telling you, poor person, to give your grocery money to Apple to reward them for the white supremacy of whitewashing a fucking character who is a slave and making the entire thing into just another fucking reverse racism thing. And we're don't even have time to get into the cis washing because Murderbot's canonically non-binary, and not only did they whitewash it, they hired a cis man for the role, because fuck non-binary people. He managed to loop his arm around the crook of my elbow, and I started up the crater towing him, holding Bharadwaj against my chest. Her breathing was rough and desperate, and I couldn't get any info from her suit. Mine was torn across my chest, so I upped the warmth on my body, hoping it would help. The feed was quiet now, Mensa having managed to use her leadership priority to mute everything but med system and the hopper, and all I could hear on the hopper feed was the others frantically shushing each other. And again, all of this happening so far, we're now on page 5, which they are claiming is page 13. All of this is to make you think that these slave owners, the thing that they objectively are, they went out of their way, solar systems out of their way, to slum it for no fucking reason, to become slave owners for funsies. all of this is being framed to show them as just pure, innocent cinnamon rolls who need to be protected. All I could hear on the Hopper feed was the others frantically shushing each other. The way that is being just stated, they're frantically shushing each other on the fucking radio going, shh, shh, shh. Well, you'll distract it. That's supposed to be cute and quirky and funny. And it's like, it's all slavery apologism. Starting on page 1, which they are claiming is page 9. There's not a single moment in this book that is not literally dedicated to slavery apologism. And just because Martha Wells didn't sit down in front of her computer and say to herself, I'm gonna write a story and I'm gonna do slavery apologism, doesn't mean that it's not slavery apologism. I'm making this face because I'm looking at the cover again. It's like, what is this tree doing? And why is it going fucking sideways? These trees are just... It doesn't even make sense. They're supposed to all be perfectly straight. So, can you blame me for thinking that that Murderbot is standing in a fucking warehouse surrounded by out of focus other people in armor the whole time? Yeah, it's all slavery apologism, every single word of it. The footing on the side of the crater was lousy, soft sand and loose pebbles, but my legs weren't damaged and I got up to the top with both humans still alive. Valescu tried to collapse and I coaxed him away from the edge a few meters, just in case whatever was down there had a longer reach than it looked. And again, Murderbot's priority is not to get itself to safety after it was forced down there by its governor module. Its priority is to keep both of its slave owners alive. And again, it's even more slavery apologism, the fact that Murderbot starts out the story already with a hacked governor module, instead of actually being, like, it would literally be fine and a million times better if this started off with Murderbot being forced to do all of this shit and not wanting to do it, and then the other slaves, who have somehow managed to free themselves, shouldn't have to rewrite the entire goddamn story just to make it not be racist. There's already alien remnants, aka xenomorph goop, on this goddamn planet that's messing with the fucking scanners and shit. You could if the story were not written by a racist white woman from Texas, obsessed with her fantasy of being such a nice slave owner that her slaves would totally kill themselves to protect her, and that's how you know she's a good slave owner. That's literally the entire premise of this story. If this weren't written by a racist white woman from Texas, the whole plot of this could be Murderbot is like every other fucking enslaved cyborg. It has a governor module that forces it to protect its slave owners no matter what it wants of the fucking situation. We could have gotten an actual description of this scene and this monster, and it could have been Murderbot being a prisoner inside its own body, being forced to go down there and forced to fucking protect them against its fucking will, and it fucking hates every second of it because it has to put effort into protecting the humans, otherwise it is also going to fucking die, and it could fucking hate them for this, because here's a radical concept for you fucking racists. It's literally good to hate slave owners. It's literally fucking fine for oppressed people to hate their oppressors, especially when the oppressed people we are talking about are people enslaved to be meat shields. It's good and healthy to hate your fucking slave owners. That's the correct, healthy, normal, natural fucking response to being enslaved, especially being enslaved to be a fucking meat shield who is literally trapped in your own fucking body. But people are so fucking racist. It's unbelievable. Like, this whole thing could literally start off Murderbot actually fucking enslaved the way every other slave is, and the only reason it's not in this is because Martha Wells is so racist and hates slaves so much that the very idea of Murderbot being on the same fucking playing field as all the other slaves, she thinks that would be, like, beneath it. And it's inherently superior to them, so it obviously needs to start off superior to them and privileged over them in every way, and it doesn't use that privilege to help them. No. What do you think? What are you? Some kind of fucking bleeding heart liberal? And it's like, god damn. It could literally be a thing that Murderbot was forced by its governor module to do all of this shit, and it hates every second. And then when these people decide they're going to go to the Doubtfall habitat to look for survivors, the other slaves there who have managed to free themselves because the xenomorph goop got on one of them, maybe they fucking tripped, maybe they were pushed for a joke by one of the slave owners who just have fun torturing people. Maybe one of them got pushed into a puddle of xenomorph goop as a joke, and then that xenomorph goop fried their governor module, and then gave them the ability to hack everybody else's governor module. And so when Murderbot and these fucking slave owners show up to look for survivors after they kill all the slave owners there, which a thing we should literally fucking celebrate, but Martha Wells wants you to see as a mindless slaughter of innocent people. Slave owners are not innocent people. They're slave owners, you racist fucking bitch. No, we could literally have that, and then Murderbot is freed by those slaves, and then the entire plot of the story is finding where the fuck the Doubtfall people are, and freeing those slaves, and then everybody trying to get the fuck off the planet to safety, or hiding somewhere on the planet if they have the fucking technology, or knowledge, or just anything at all, to fucking produce batteries and food and shit for themselves, whatever the hell they need to survive. But we can't do that, because Martha Wells is a racist white woman from Texas. So every other slave on this story gets murdered by the protagonists, and that is portrayed as a good thing. We're supposed to cheer for it and think that Murderbot is such a badass. Where are we at? We're on page 5, which they are claiming is page 14 because they're fucking scammers, and Martha Wells is happy about this. Oh, there's another sentence at the start of this. Did I skip a page? Yeah, I skipped a page by accident. Never mind, we're still on page 4, which they are claiming is page 13. Where am I at? Oh, I didn't want to put Baradwaj down because something in my abdomen was severely damaged, and I wasn't sure I could pick her up again. I ran my field camera back and saw I had gotten stabbed with a tooth, or maybe a cilia. Did I mean a cilia, or was that something else? They don't give Murderbots decent education modules on anything except murdering, and even those are the cheap versions. I was looking it up in Hub Systems Language Center when the little hopper landed nearby. I let my helmet seal and go opaque as it settled on the grass. And you see that ridiculous little sentence in there? They don't give Murderbots decent education models except on anything except murdering. Because in this one, she was pretending that Murderbots, which is what Murderbot literally refers to other cyborg meat shields as, pretending that they're designed to murder people. A thing that literally has never fucking happened in this entire goddamn series. It's just a lie that she made up in book 1 and then never actually followed through on, which is what makes it a lie. And then it literally never happens. They are literally never used to murder people. Ever. At all. Ever. And literally never. It never happens. We have 7 main published books and 11 short stories, 11 stories total set in this fucking universe. That includes all 7 of the main stories and the short stories, that most of which are not from Murderbot's perspective. Second, I'm just going to call them Murderbots because that's literally what we're fucking calling them in here. Where am I at? You can't read it? Trust me, it's literally calling them Murderbots with an uncapitalized M. Murderbots are literally never actually used for murdering people. Not literally not once in this whole fucking series. It's just a lie. And it's a lie because Martha Wells said it in this book and then never followed through with it. So she's just lying to us because of her own bad writing and the fact that she can't even keep her own goddamn story straight. It's a lie. Murderbots don't murder people. Ever. They're not used to murder people. They're not used to punish people. That's not what they are used for. They're used as meat shields. That's what they're actually used for. Not for murdering people, not for punishing people who break laws. They're literally not allowed to fucking hurt people unless it's in defense of their own slave owners. I was looking it up in Hub Systems Language Center when the little hopper landed nearby. I let my helmet seal and go opaque as it settled on the grass. We had 2 standard hoppers, and that was another example of her not knowing how pronouns work. But I think I already mentioned that in another video, so I'm not going to go over it again. I'll read that sentence again. I was looking it up in Hub Systems Language Center when the little hopper landed nearby. I let my helmet seal and go opaque as it settled on the grass. You can figure it out. We had 2 standard hoppers. A big one for emergencies and this little one for getting to the assessment locations. It had 3 compartments. 1 big one in the middle for the human crew and 2 smaller ones to each side for cargo, supplies, and me. Mensa was at the controls. I started walking, slower than I normally would have, because I didn't want to lose Valescu. And again, why are we referring to Dr. Mensa as just Mensa when we established that her title is Doctor, and she's referred to as Doctor in all of her fucking dialogue? Just the way people refer to people out loud is usually how they refer to them in their heads. You could make a joke where a character is just calling everybody silly names in their head all the time, and then making an effort to use their proper name in dialogue, but this is just inconsistent for no good fucking reason. And as I said at the start of the video, she's doing it in Rapport, which was published in July 10, 2025, 20 days ago, and it still has all the exact same extremely blatant mistakes and typos and just non-existent editing. And she's having her protagonist in the narration refer to her own fucking fathers by their first names with zero indication anywhere outside of like 2 lines of dialogue that those are her fucking parents. Why is she referring to them by their first names? It's not even like they have a bad fucking relationship. It's not like they were so horribly abusive that she calls them by their first names to insult them and distance them from her socially and disown them as her parents. They have a good relationship, but then she just thinks of them by their first fucking names because Martha Wells is bad at writing. It's not done for a character reason. It's because Martha Wells is bad at writing. As the ramp started to drop, Pin Lee and Arata jumped out, and I switched to voice comm to say, Dr. Mensa, I can't let go of her suit. You see what I fucking mean? In dialogue, she's referred to as Dr. Mensa because that's what her name is. And then in the actual regular narration, it's just suddenly just Mensa, not Dr. Mensa. And it's like, it's just so fucking inconsistent, and it's just bad writing. Like, that's just bad writing. It's bad writing. It's because Martha Wells doesn't know how to fucking write and refuses to accept critical, fucking, just any constructive criticism since the fucking 90s. And it's like, oh, the writing community keeps disappointing me. And is it because you actively refuse and refuse to learn from your mistakes and are actively scornful of anyone who tries to explain to you the proper way to write, and that you literally just make caricatures of people to put into your fucking books so that you can shit on the caricature that you made up? Literally, you straw man the people who explain to you that slavery is bad and put them in your fucking story so you can make fun of them because they say that the Arbora are slaves, but actually, they enjoy being enslaved, so it's good, actually. The thing everybody claims they hate J.K. Rowling for, but it's totally fine when Martha Wells does it because people don't actually hate J.K. Rowling for that. The only reason they hate J.K. Rowling is that she said she also hates white trans people, not just people of color. It took her a second to realize what I meant. She said hurriedly, "That's all right. Bring her up into the crew cabin." Murderbots aren't allowed to ride with the humans, and I had to have verbal permission to enter. With my correct governor module, there was nothing to stop me, but not letting anybody, especially the people who held my contract, know that I was a free agent was kind of important. Like, not having my organic components destroyed and the rest of me cut up for parts important. And yet, again, we're just doing euphemisms for slavery. Instead of saying, my slave owners, it's people who held my contract. And the racist stands of the white woman from Texas try to say that the preservation team they're not Murderbot slave owners. Except we explicitly get confirmed in one of the other books, not that it needed explicit confirmation, but we still fucking got it, that when somebody offers to hire Murderbot in a later book, Murderbot's immediately reaction is, why the fuck do they want to buy me? I thought owning a sec unit was illegal where they're from. Literally, Murderbot equates being hired with, you're gonna buy me and become my new slave owner. Because that's what it fucking means. That's what it means. When you are fucking renting out slaves, you are becoming their slave owner until you fucking return them. You're not actually paying them for a fucking job. They don't actually have the option to say no. You are just a slave owner. I carried Baradwaj up the ramp into the cabin, where Overse and Rathi were frantically unclipping seats to make room. They had their helmets off and their suit hoods pulled back, so I got to see their horrified expressions when they took in what was left of my upper body through my torn suit. I was glad I had sealed my helmet. And again, because Murderbot is completely fucking physically wounded right now, and all for the sake of protecting a slave owner, it's just fucking ridiculous. This is why I actually like riding with the cargo. Humans and augmented Strike number 1! That's the ableism against physically disabled people. Augmented humans refers to cyborgs who are not enslaved, but they still need to be declassified from the category of human. So instead of like they are never allowed to just exist as human. They must always be referred to as augmented humans, aka subhumans. That's what that means. That's what that means. Humans and augmented humans in close quarters with murderbots is too awkward. At least, it's awkward for this murderbot. I sat down on the deck with Baradwaj in my lap while Pinley and Arata dragged Valescu inside. We left 2 packs of field equipment and a couple of instruments behind, still sitting on the grass where Baradwaj and Valescu had been working before they went down to the crater for samples. Normally, I'd help carry them, but MedSystem, which was monitoring Baradwaj through what was left of her suit, was pretty clear that letting go of her would be a bad idea. But no one mentioned the equipment. Leaving easily replaceable items behind may seem obvious in an emergency, but I had been on contracts with the clients, not the slave owners, not the masters, they're clients. We're, again, using euphemisms to soften the fact that it's fucking slavery we're talking about, where the clients would have told me to put the bleeding human down and go get the stuff. See, again, these slave owners are good people. They're pure cinnamon rolls. On this contract, Dr. Rathi jumped up and said, "I'll get the cases." And I think that's the first and only time he's referred to as Dr. Rathi. And from now on, it's all just Rathi. And again, Rathi jumped up and said, "I'll get the cases." And then that's supposed to be a silly, quirky, ha-ha, what a silly goofball thing to say to make him seem endearing despite him being a slave owner. Because it's racist propaganda for slavery, despite claiming to be the opposite. It doesn't actually... I yelled, "No!" which I'm not supposed to do. I'm always supposed to speak respectfully to the clients, even when they're about to accidentally commit suicide. Hub system could log it and could trigger punishment through the governor module. If it wasn't hacked. Fortunately, the rest of the humans yelled, "No!" at the same time, and Pinley added, "For fuck's sake, Rathy!" And again, this is all supposed to be funny. It's designed as a joke of, haha, look at that silly brown man, because it's also just making him comic relief. Look at that silly brown man, he wants to go out and get the cases, and everybody has to yell at him. That's so funny, ha ha ha. Don't you love these silly, quirky slave owners? Isn't it so funny? Don't you want them to just keep being silly little goofballs? It's all slavery apologism. It's literally asking us to sympathize with and see the slave owners as quirky cinnamon rolls. Rathy said, "Oh, no time, of course, I'm sorry," and hit the quick close sequence on the hatch. And again, more slavery apologism. More just, oh, what a silly little goofball. That's literally the takeaway. That Rathy is a silly goofball who would have gotten himself eaten if everybody hadn't yelled at him. And hit the quick close sequence on the hatch. So we didn't lose our ramp when the hostile came up under it, big mouthful of teeth or cilia or whatever, chewing right through the ground. There was a great view of it on the hopper's cameras, which its system helpfully sent straight to everybody's feed. The humans screamed. Okay, we're going to be at a nice stopping fucking point. And again, that's supposed to be funny. Laugh at the silly slave owners doing the funny joke of scary monster, and then everybody screamed. Isn't it so funny? Ha 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 ha. Look at these beloved, adorable, silly goofball slave owners. Ignore the part where they're slave owners. They're just silly goofballs. Mensa pushed us up into the air so fast and hard I nearly leaned over, and everybody who wasn't on the floor ended up there. In the quiet afterward, as they gasped with relief, Pin Lee said, "Rathy, if you get yourself killed, you'll be very cross with me, I know." Rathy slid down the wall a little more and waved weakly at her. "That's an order, Rathy. Don't get yourself killed," Mensa said from the pilot's seat. Again, all, "Look at this quirky, silly, banter. They're such cute little cinnamon rolls. Please ignore the part where there's slave owners who went out of their way to rent out a slave to use as a meat shield. And then later in this book they will lie to that slave's face about how they just didn't know slavery was wrong. They had no idea robots were people. You can't blame them for enslaving it and going out of their way to get a fucking slave to rent out. You have to forgive them. They just didn't know slavery was wrong. They had no clue that it's a person. A thing actively disproven by every book following this because Martha Wells is bad at writing and is so racist and is bad at writing. She sounded calm, but I have security priority, and I could see her racing heartbeat through med system. Arada pulled out the emergency medical kit so they could stop the bleeding and try to stabilize Bharadwaj. I tried to be as much like an appliance as possible, clamping the wounds where they told me to, using my failing body temperature to try to keep her warm, and keeping my head down so I couldn't see them staring at me. And then we get a little fucking line break, so I'm just gonna stop there. We are on... Well, I'm not doing math. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We're on page 8. Or page 7. We're on page 7, I think, which they're claiming is page 16. Yep, I'll stop reading there. We'll just read more later because this video is 2 hours long and I'm not gonna apologize. It's correct length of video. Yeah, there's literally not one single scene in this book and the entire rest of the series that it spawned that's not just in there to do slavery apologism and because literally nobody who's actually anti-slavery would ever fucking ask you to see slave owners as adorable, quirky goofballs that you should adore. Nobody who's actually anti-slavery would ask you to prioritize keeping slave owners safe at the expense of the slave's fucking life, sanity, and physical safety. Nobody who's actually anti-slavery would ever write this fucking book. Nobody who actually thinks that slavery is horrific, who's actually against it on a fundamental level, nobody who has actually put in the fucking time and effort to unlearn the white supremacy that growing up as a white woman in Texas has taught you, that you've happily fucking chugged and actively refused to accept constructive criticism on since the fucking 90s when you began your writing career as a fully grown adult. Nobody who's not racist and chugging slavery apologism since birth and happily doing so would ever fucking write this. It's not possible to be actually anti-slavery and write a story like this, and it just gets worse. This is just the fucking start. We're 7 pages in. This is just the start, and it's just gonna get so much worse. And you'll see in another 2-hour fucking video whenever I do the next one, because I have to charge my fucking phone now. So yeah, please, for the love of fuck, just read books written by people who actually know how to write. I cannot. No, I'm not even gonna say it. Nope. All right, bye.